Blended and personalized learning is really about allowing students to learn at their own pace, to be able to demonstrate their understanding and their mastery when they're ready for it.
It allows the learning to shift from a teacher-centered classroom into a student-centered classroom, providing the opportunities for student choice, to hear student voice, and to use technology to drive all of that forward.
So I wanted to start using blended learning because it really enhances your teaching, it encourages kids to take ownership of their learning, and it encourages kids to become really engaged in their learning.
I finally feel that my classroom has shifted from focusing on me to focusing on students. It allows students to take ownership of their own learning, and I become simply a facilitator of that learning.
Technology enhances the way I can communicate and collaborate with students. Where before I had to wait and they had to write something, they had to hand it in to me, I had it and they didn't have access to it until I turned it back. We now both have access to things all the time. They have access to the work they've missed. They have access to every resource I have. They can see the notes, they can see my presentations at any time. I can see the work that they're doing before they've finished. So I can take a look when I have time. It doesn't need to just be during class. I can make comments and we can work together whether they're in their room or not.
A positive aspect that I've seen using blended learning is that the students are really taking ownership of their own learning and also each other's learning. So they're really helping each other learn. If they have questions, they'll go to each other before coming to me, which has been really nice because they're really a team in this classroom.
This is a huge shift from our traditional classroom model. I worried that students would be reluctant to take on that role, and I think at first I had a few skeptics in the room, but over time students have learned to embrace their own learning and really take joy in that ownership.
One of the biggest difficulties I had in terms of kind of starting to roll this out was just shifting the idea of what we needed to do during class. That my job as a teacher wasn't to just give them all of the information. And there are still a lot of students that want that. They're more comfortable with that. Their time in class should be their time to work, and that I'm there to assist them and assess them, but that I'm not the only way that they can get knowledge.
I'm available to answer specific questions for specific students whenever they need me to be available. And I'm able to pull out students who are struggling and work with them one-on-one or two-on-one, while other students are not necessarily waiting for me to resume the class. They can continue at their own pace while that's happening.
As a result of using blended learning in my classroom, I've been able to watch the students master the content much easier and much faster than in the traditional classroom.
I've seen students who struggled with math in the past identify their own needs sooner, and suddenly they're finding the results as they master standards on assessments and really just are soaring with this content.
I recently started my first unit using something called the grid method, which is a fully personalized and blended learning unit. We're on day 2 of it, and so far it's going pretty well, but in this unit, students are going through the unit at their own pace. They complete assignments when they're ready. They take tests and quizzes when they're ready. And so the class time becomes a lot more about me working with students and assessing students and speaking with students than me trying to give the students the information.
The next steps for me are definitely going to involve differentiation. I think at this point, my playlist is still somewhat one-size-fits-all. Right now, I'm still lacking in some of the extension possibilities for students who catch on very quickly. And I think in the future, as those pieces are incorporated into the playlists themselves, I think students will find even more to explore and to learn.
I encourage other teachers to incorporate blended learning because it really changes the way you interact with your students. Your job is to sit and help these students and help them understand and to see if they do understand. And it really changes the way you have a personal relationship with your students. And I think that makes my job so much more enjoyable at the end of the day.
It really allows the students to take ownership of their learning. It also allows me to differentiate all of my lessons for them.
Once you take the first leap into the world of blended learning, you will immediately see the joy it brings to your classroom. You will see the excitement in students. You will see the conversations and debates and learning happening right before your eyes. And before you know it, the students are working harder than the teacher. And I think that's where true learning happens.